Hi, I'm Donald Pitt, the founder and Managing Director of Quality Building Management.
As you can see from this list, I hold a large number of licenses and qualifications to be able to discuss this topic with you today. I hold trade qualifications, carpentry, joinery and wall plastering, and have been a licensed builder since 1981. I have licensing to conduct and certify fire equipment, am fire safety advisor, a safety professional, and a licensed asbestos assessor. The topic today is fire safety for commercial properties and bodies corporate with a commercial component in Queensland. What is 1851? So it's an Australian standard, and there was a major review conducted on the old 2005 version, which was released in December 2012. It's to be implemented on the 1st of January 2015. Now, all states reference 1851 except New South Wales and WA. But naturally, of course, they can use it because without abiding by 1851, there is no standard for maintaining fire equipment. So what is the legislation applicable? So we've got AS 1851, which is the servicing of fire equipment, the Building Fire Safety Regulations, Queensland Development Code MP 6.1, the Fire and Rescue Services Act, Building Code of Australia and WHS regs. So what are the major changes? Well, mainly the changes are limiting the amount of servicing that's required in Queensland on fire equipment. As you can see on these next two tables here, we've cut out some weekly testing, 3-year and 5-yearly testing. The big change though is for evacuation. It's now called in 1851 emergency planning of facilities. So like the building fire regulations in Queensland, there's a need now for fire and evacuation plans, or depending on if you're a commercial property, which we're talking about here, it's an emergency management plan. And there's a need for a review every 6 months and a yearly fire and evacuation practice. Logbooks can be electronic, but even if they're electronic and you still use the old tag system for extinguishers and blankets and hydrants, you must leave a summary log on site. And fire doors for commercial properties don't need a 3-monthly test, it's only a 6 and 12 monthly test. So how does 1851 affect you? Well, it limits the amount of servicing required. So ensure that your maintenance contractor leaves a summary log on site for all servicing, and they limit their servicing to what's in the new standard now. And ensure that you have an emergency management plan in place that is reviewed every 6 months, and an emergency evacuation is conducted every 12 months. So what's the linkages between 1851, the Building Fire Safety Regs, and the Queensland Development Code MP 6.1? Well, all Queensland legislation is actually well managed, and all the legislation has been updated to account for the new 1851. MP 6.1 has taken out the requirement though for structural passive fire systems. So in other words, fire walls and fire penetrations have been taken out of the Australian standards, that you don't need to service these. But MP 6.1 clearly states the following. And I'll leave that for you to read there, but it says that you must maintain them in accordance to the fire safety installation to the standard they were actually originally installed. So it keeps going on. And so it talks about here that they're required to comply with this section of the Act at all times, and you should periodically inspect structural features. And they must be capable of performing to a standard no less than they were originally constructed to achieve. Thus, periodic inspections of fire walls and penetrations is required. So where have commercial properties been failing? Well, fire doors have never been tested in a lot of areas. And in a number of cases, fire doors are in poor condition. Fire and evacuation plans haven't been upgraded to emergency management plans if they have been developed at all. Evacuation practice haven't been conducted, and firewalls and penetrations have never been inspected. And the number one item on the QBCC list of faults with buildings are firewalls and penetrations. So you've never inspected them, but they've probably never been constructed properly in the first place. And maintenance records of not being held on site. So what do you need to do? Well, you need to conduct an audit to ensure full compliance with AS 1851, MP 6.1, the building fire regs, by a qualified person. You must develop an emergency management plan and have that reviewed every 6 months, and conduct an emergency evacuation practice every 12 months. And all your staff must be trained in the use of fire equipment and evacuation procedures. You should conduct an inspection of all firewalls and penetrations on a periodic basis, and ensure all your equipment is maintained to the new Australian standard 1851. And all these records must be kept on site, either in a fire cabinet or in another area that's protected from the effects of fire. And every 12 months, you must submit the occupier statement to the QFRS, stating that you have maintained all the equipment. So what if you don't comply? Look, there's legal considerations. There's fines and everything contained in the regulations, and they're quite severe fines. But let's look at the other areas. What about insurance? What would happen if there's a fire on your property and your fire equipment isn't serviced to standards, your firewalls aren't compliant? Will the insurance company cover you? Well, I've posed that question to the insurance companies, and their answer is, it depends. Now, what does it depends mean? Well, I don't know, and they don't really know, and they won't tell me. So it may mean that they'll limit their cover to the areas that you are compliant in, not cover you in other areas, not cover you at area at all, or fully cover you. We don't know. Are you prepared to take that risk? Then there's, look, the loss of possessions. Can you afford to replace all the items if insurance won't cover you? But consider injury and loss of life. What money saving are you prepared to put on a person's life? And is the few $100s required for full compliance really worth a serious injury? I'm Donald Pitt, and thank you for your time today.